Okay, so I've had a few questions on number 6. So this is probably the most challenging problem on this page. So first thing, so I can get x by itself, because ultimately that's our goal. Because it's divided by 2, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. That way this 2 and that 2 cancel. So we have 5 to the x minus 16 times 5 to the negative x equals 6. Okay, from there, because this is 5 to the negative x, that's going to be hard to do any factoring or any sort. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5 to the x power. So before I figure that out, the purpose of this, if I have 5 to the x times 5 to the negative x, if you have the same base, you can add the exponents. So if we add x plus negative x, that would be 0. And anything to the 0th power is 1. So in other words, those will just cancel each other out. So if I distribute this out, we're going to have 5, because we have x, these have the same bases, we would add the exponent, so 5 to the 2x power. We multiply the 5 to the x times this, so we'll have minus 16 will stay. But because we have 5 to the x and 5 to the negative x, what we just explained over here, that'll just cancel and give us 1. And then because these are not the same bases, we can't technically put them together. So we're just going to put 6 times 5 to the x. Okay, so if you look, this is really like a quadratic. This is our squared power. This is just our regular x power, and this is our number. So I'm going to move everything to the same side and put it in order. Okay, and I know this looks really strange, but it's very similar to number 5. I'm going to come over here to the side and just make a similar problem that's just a plain quadratic. So I want to assume that for my quadratic, every time it says 5 to the x, that's really just going to be an x. So because it says 5 to the 2x, that's like having x squared. Minus, this is 6 times 5 to the x, so that's like having 6x. And this is minus 16. So now I've just made a basic quadratic. We know how to factor that. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 16 and add to negative 6, which are going to be negative 8 and 2. So I could turn this into x minus 8 and x plus 2. So it's pretty much the same thing if we go back over here. So this was the same problem, but instead of x's, it was 5 to the x. So this would be factored as 5 to the x minus 8 times 5 to the x plus 2. And that will set me up where I can solve from there. So I'm going to split these into two parts. I'm going to have 5 to the x minus 8 equals 0. So if I want to solve this, I would add my 8 over. Because it's an exponential form, we have to change it to log form. So it's going to be log base of 5 of 8 equals x. So if you didn't have a calculator, you could leave it like that. But if you have a calculator, that'll give you the 1.292. Okay, so over here, I have 5 to the x plus 2 equals 0. So I have to subtract 2 this time. So it's an exponential form, so I'm going to put it in log base 5 of negative 2 equals x. You can't take the log of a negative number. If you try to type it in, it's going to give you an error. So this part does not give you an answer. So the only answer would be this 1.292.